I've been playing through The Witcher 3 recently, and oh boy, does this 8-year-old game look stunning. Yes, it did have a next-gen update, but that's besides the point, because this game does a very specific thing absolutely perfectly. A tiny little thing that I wish more games did. Let's see if you can notice it. There. Did you catch it? When you look towards the sun, not only do you get these beautiful lens flares, but under all of that you get tiny little droplets, almost like water stains on the car after some rain. For a couple reasons, it is one of the most immersive effects, at least in my opinion. Before we can implement this in our game, we have to understand how it works. Here, let's take a Lego brick. This doesn't really look like a Lego brick, does it? I mean, yeah, it resembles a Lego brick, but does it look anywhere close to real? No, not at all. Computers like to simulate a perfect world, but nothing in the real world is ever perfect. So to combat that perfection, we can add imperfections to the surface. I can now almost imagine rubbing my fingers along the cracks and scratches, feeling the bumps and the grease and the little nicks in the plastic. This immerses me in the world of this Lego. To understand how these imperfections are added, we're gonna have to dig a little deeper. When we make materials for games, we combine a lot of different images, or textures, together. Each texture represents something different about said material. The base color would affect what color the material is going to be, the metallic would influence how metallic it looks, and the roughness would determine how glossy or matte a material seems on a scale of black, glossy, to white, matte, with gray values being in between. But instead of just determining how shiny a material is, this is where we can do the majority of surface imperfections. For example, walk over to your window. Come on, yes you, get off your crusty chair and come with me to the window. A clean window is shiny.
No, come on, hey.
But once I add some fingerprints, we can see that where I touched becomes more matte. Because a fingerprint is really just placement of oil and dust onto a surface, fingerprints really just make that part of the material less rough, or more matte. So if we add the texture of some fingerprints and smudges into the roughness of that Lego, we get something really realistic looking. If we combine that with some scratches and the accumulation of some dust around the pegs, we get a pretty frickin' convincing looking Lego piece. Just like we can make the Lego piece look tangible, we can do the same thing to the lens of the camera. I wanted to implement this into our platformer game that we are creating, and by adding an overlay of some droplets, just like the fingerprints, we can simulate a bunch of droplets on the screen. Now, this is very distracting and takes away from the game itself, which I gotta say is pretty frickin' fun. So instead of having it look like the entire lens is dirty, we can do what The Witcher 3 did, and only have it appear in areas of the screen that are really bright. All we have to do is take the contrast of the image and boost it by a ton. That will give us something like this. And if we were to multiply that by the texture of the droplets, we would get something like this. When it is overlaid on the screen, we get the effect that we have been searching for the entire time. I honestly didn't expect it to be that easy, but I really think that it adds so much tangibility to the game's camera, and it is, in my opinion, incredibly underutilized in games. I can really only think of a few that do this, so if you have some in mind, let me know in the comments. Stay tuned for some more stuff like this. Thank you.